Junction Council meeting to order. Invocation will be led by Vice Mayor Wilson and the pledge by Council Member Schroeder.
Heavenly Father, we are gathered together this cool evening to perform city business. Please be with us and our staff as we continue to make policies and rules that are good for the entire community. We will continue to ensure that we keep this a great community to live, work, and have a business and raise a family. Our desires to keep this community what attracted us to this community, a small community working together for the common good of everyone. We also ask for your healing hand for Bob, the husband of Councilwoman Krista Rizzi, as he recovers from his surgery procedure that he had today. We again ask for your protective hand for our first responders as they continue to protect our lifestyle and belongings. We extend this to our military members from our community as well as their families wherever they are serving throughout the world. Bring them all home safe each and every day. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Mayor Surtee,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Barker. Here. Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
Councilmember Struble.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that the consent agenda be accepted as presented and that the minutes of the regular meeting of December 3rd, 2019 be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Councilmember Struble.
Yep.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Mayor Surtee.
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
Does anyone have any announcements or current events? We'll start with Jeff Struble.
Okay. So we had I'm sure everybody will probably talk about it, but we had the holiday festival event, Christmas party, whatever we want to call it, on the first Saturday there. It was an awesome day. The rain held out right until the end of the actual park event. Unfortunately, we got a little wet at the parade, but that's what we get in Arizona. We get wet whenever we have events. So that was a great time. Great to see all the people out there. Great to see the kids. It was fun. Then just a reminder, the AJ Kids Idol is January 26th. If you need tickets, we've got them. And it's going to be out at Mountain View Lutheran Church starting at 6. We've got a great group of kids that are going to be performing. You all will be amazed at what you have there. And then we're also going to be having the second annual prayer walk on January 11th. If you have any information or you need information, they'll be on Facebook and such things. We're going to have an event at the park, Flatiron Park, right afterwards, around 11 or so. So other than that, just to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year.
Gail?
No, I'm going to pass.
Chip?
That's unusual. I'm going to make a quick comment concerning the parade that we had, the Parade of Lights, where we had an individual that has dressed up his horse as being a reindeer. That horse was something special. Those of you that may remember, several years ago, we as a community ended up taking some animals from a woman that was not properly feeding the animals, and they were in extremely poor shape when we got them. In fact, we didn't think that 3 of them were even going to live. Yarman, that's the horse's name, was one of those 3 that we did not think was going to live. And he has turned out to be a fantastic animal. But I thought that he is showing back to the community what we can do to help animals that are not properly being taken care of.
I had a picture of that. We could have loaded it if you had told me you were going to do that. Robert?
No.
Just one comment. I went to the Pinnell Partnership breakfast on Friday morning, and Elliot Pollock informed all of us that it's going to be a good year economically. So we all have that to look forward to, and a Merry Christmas to everybody.
Well, good night.
I want to thank Councilmember Barker for sitting in for me at the airport meeting this morning. And also the tree lighting, it was a good turnout of, it seemed to me like it was bigger than Veterans Day. A lot of young people out there, so it was very, very nice to showcase the city. And this morning, last meeting, I said that there would be a meeting here with ADOT, and we had representatives from ADOT, the National Forest, the Tonto National Monument, and Congressman Gozar's office, McSally's office, and State Representative Townsend were here. And we let everybody know just what that trail means to us. We did kind of get some answers in case anybody's asking. It seemed like within 6 months, the road will be open to Fish Creek Hill from both directions, but Fish Creek Hill itself may be years. It may be 3 or 4 years, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and very expensive. Feels to me like they could do it, but there's a, when you get into government entities like this, there's so many different ways that it's pulled in different directions. So we ended the meeting with a pledge to try to get together again in the spring with an update. So we'll try to let everybody know about that. And we tried to record it, but nobody would speak into the microphone. So the only time it gets picked up is if you speak into a microphone. So we'll make sure that we put them up here next time so that we can hear them and we can record it and share, because it does mean so much to our community. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bryant Powell, City Manager. We're pleased to have our annual Citizen Leadership Institute coming up soon, and so we invite all of our residents to come and participate in this award-winning program. Many of our residents, we usually have somewhere between 20 and 25 residents each year participate in an 8-session class, and it starts in January. Al Bravo, raise your hand. He is our public information officer, and anybody would be interested in this, he is there and ready to help you and get signed up, and it's a really, really great opportunity for residents to learn how local government is set up in Apache Junction. And I'm pleased to also report that North Ironwood Road from Lots Dutchman on up is complete. We have a bike lane and goes up to McKellips, and we're super kudos to Public Works staff for coordinating and making that project happen. Here in the winter, the State of the City, the third State of the City is coming up, and want the community to be aware of that and know, and all are invited. And that'll be Wednesday, February 12th at the Performing Arts Center at the Apache Junction High School. We have a reception and networking that starts at 6:30, and then at 7 o'clock the program begins. And then this week was our annual Police Department Volunteer Appreciation Dinner. It was a wonderful night. Matt was able to attend on behalf of the city manager's office, and several members of council and the mayor were able to participate. And we are so thankful for all the volunteers who help make it so special, our department. And then last for my report tonight, a project that you all have been working for is our wayfinding signs that were budgeted in last fiscal year went up. And these are modeled after the first sign that went up on Plaza Drive and Superstition, and it helps. We have 5 signs that went up around the downtown area, and it kind of starts to create that sense of place of you're now in a different area when you're in our downtown. And that concludes my report tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Consideration of proposed ordinance number 1486, rezoning number PZ-6-19, a request by Better Choice Homes. Sydney.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Sidney Arias, Senior Planner here on staff. Tonight I'll be giving a presentation on Coyote Crossing. The proposed project is located on Tepee in Idaho, as indicated as in the red hatch area. The current zoning for the project is RSGR. It's a single-family residential, general rural. The proposed zoning for this property is RM1/PD. The formal request from the applicant is approval of a rezone and a plan development and a preliminary plat of approximately 2.5 acres for a 12 lots residential subdivision. Some of the adjacent neighbors are Quail Creek condos to the south, Apache Junction townhomes also to the south, and some recreational vehicle parks that are also nearby. This proposed project is in conformance with our general plan. Our general plan designates this area as medium-density residential. And here we have the proposed site plan and landscape plan. As previously mentioned, this is a 12-lot subdivision. All lots are typically or are very similar with the exception of lots 6 and 7, which are smaller lots due to the cul-de-sac at the end. Residents would be able to enter via Idaho, turn on Tepee, and enter the subdivision. Part of this application, the applicant provided floor plans and elevations. The applicant is providing 2 floor plans and 3 elevations. Typical home sizes will be between 1,900 and 2,000 square feet. Also, since this is a planned development, they are asking for some deviations from the zoning ordinance. Some of those deviations include minimum lot width, lot coverage, but only for lots 6 and 7, those smaller lots that I just mentioned and pointed out. Also, a reduction in rear setback from 20 feet to 5 feet, but those are also only for lots 6 and 7. The remainder of lots will have at least a minimum rear yard size distance of 20 feet. Additional deviations include front setback and a side setback from 20 to 18 and 10 to 5. These setbacks are the exact same setbacks that were approved by Planning, Zoning, and City Council for Goldview at Lennar, or Lennar by Goldview, or Goldview by Lennar. This project was appropriately posted. Staff has not received any public input from the neighbors. This project was presented in front of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission actually recommended denial of the project due to concerns of the side yard setbacks, even though these are the exact same setbacks that were approved by Lennar, for Lennar. With that said, staff is still recommending approval of ST 119 and PZ 619, subject to the standard conditions of approval found in your staff report. That concludes my presentation. I am here if you have any questions, and so is the applicant and their design team.
Do we have any questions for Sydney before we ask for the applicant? Is the applicant here? Would they like to say anything?
Council, Your Honor, appreciate the opportunity. Chris Young with Better Choice Homes. We've met with several of you regarding this project. We do feel that it is a good transitional size of lot between the higher density and rural development. We're looking forward to the opportunity to be a part of Apache Junction as well as what growth is ensuing. We're grateful to be aware of the opportunities that are there and grateful for the opportunity to participate in the development of Apache Junction, which we see to be growing in the future. That's all the comments I have. I'm also here for questions if you need anything from me.
Are there any questions?
I'm curious, what price range do you see these homes going in?
Based on comparable values, we expect anywhere from $240,000 to $250,000 for these homes. So they're more of an entry level relative to some of the other homes that are available for sure in the valley. And it's a transitional size, empty nester size, as well as a new family size is kind of the market that we're trying to cater to. There's a school right next door and the Boys and Girls Club, so there's quite a bit of amenities that suit that particular home size.
Okay, I don't really see this as an empty nester, particularly. Most of those folks aren't going to want to climb stairs.
No, this is true. Very good point.
But I like the smaller lots myself.
Any more questions?
I got one question. The 2 homes that have the small backyards in this,
Yes, sir.
is there a way of increasing the size of the backyard? To me, that is a concerning, especially for the home owner for those 2
Sure.
places.
Sure, understood. per the other requirements of drainage, retention, and the cul-de-sac, there was no other way to split up that parcel in a way. You could lose those two lots. That was really the only other alternative.
Can you bring that graphic back, Matt?
Yes.
So this one, or which one, Mr. Mayor?
There's-
That
Yeah,
one,
that
yeah.
one,
6 and 7.
6 and 7.
Yeah,
'Cause it's, well, I was thinking maybe even the possibility of looking at a downsized home
right.
for them in those two, because of the fact that there's nothing in their back. There's nothing there,
Mm-hmm.
and that does concern me.
Okay, noted, appreciate that. We can look into the option of potentially shrinking that. Would require further permitting and design requirements, of course, but I can look into that. What we found is that there are quite a number in that particular range that want no landscaping and no lot size. So it's a step above having shared walls to give you more of a sense of personal ownership, but it also does minimize. So we didn't feel that that small lot would actually be a deterrent. There's only two, and we did not think that would be a deterrent for those that are looking for no lot, relatively no lot, and minimal landscape work or maintenance.
And I agree with you. I don't think it'll matter. And it's that way just because of the radius of the cul-de-sac itself.
Yes, ma'am.
Took away from it, which I understand why you need to have that. But I don't think that it would stop anybody from wanting to buy it, because like you said, there are people that don't want anything but want their own home as well. And as far as the Planning and Zoning Commission, their denial, it had something to do with, they thought the fire department couldn't access it if there was a problem, but the fire department cleared it.
They did.
So
That's right.
with their clearing it, I don't have a problem with that.
Very good.
I have another question. Is this walled back here between the lots and the landscaping?
Yes, ma'am. That's, so there is a slight bit of retaining wall. We'll be raising some of the pads for drainage purposes to make sure the water's flowing the correct direction. There's also a 6-foot privacy wall around.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this item? We have one request already, Eric Bridges. And we'll need your address and name.
Thank you for having me. My name's Eric Bridges. My wife and I live on 330 West Smoke Tree Street, so one street north of this proposed development. And I'm here with my neighbors as well, who also live on Smoke Tree Street. And we wanted to bring up a few thoughts regarding high-density development in the area for a few minutes. This is the second occurrence of high-density housing since we've been here, moving into the area, into an otherwise rural zoned area that's north of Tepee. We're essentially in the path of future development, so it is raising a flag with us. Obviously, we moved here for a rural lifestyle, and we enjoy the trail access and low congestion. We all have animals, including horses, alpacas, chickens, and we carefully chose rural zone lots, properties in Apache Junction to enable this lifestyle. So we understand the city has every intention of preventing further high-density expansion north of Tepee Street, and we appreciate that. The concern we have is that good intentions have failed to prevent high-density developments from replacing rural communities elsewhere in the valley. Once the precedent is set for rezoning these parcels, it seems to set off a trend of irreversible development. And from what we've seen, most of the other cities in the valley have failed to address this. So we see it as a risk. A related concern is, the intermingling of high-density housing with rural properties. sets up an environment for conflict over land use. The residents that move into these high-density, newer homes, the homeowners, are potentially going to have issues with living next to livestock and a dustier environment. These rural properties do generate dust, and the animals do smell like livestock, you know. They make noise, sometimes all hours of the night. So that has to be accepted with homeowners who move into this area. At the same time, if this growth continues, it's going to make it very difficult for the rural residents to enjoy horseback riding and other activities that they currently do from their homes. There's easy trail access that increasing congestion is going to make very difficult if this continues. You know, one potential solution going forward that we've looked at is there are other vacant parcels in the area that are currently zoned higher density. You know, one that comes to mind is at the intersection of San Marcos and Greasewood. It's it used to be a trailer park. It's abandoned now. It's at least 2.5 acres, and it's in a more residential area that has quieter streets. It might be a better fit for a development like this. Another consideration is tourism. You know, most of the visitors that come here, either winter visitors, vacationers, they put value in having an authentic southwestern experience. And this northeast part of AJ is their route they take to access the recreational areas to the north and east. We need to be a little careful of the image we project if we put up too much high-density housing as they proceed out to their recreational areas. It may have a negative impact on tourism. So in conclusion, what we're requesting is that the city consider rejecting any requests for rezoning of rural parcels going forward, and that we also request that the city officially establishes Tepee Street as the northern boundary for any future high-density housing projects. We feel that is needed to preserve the limited rural zoned properties that exist here, and it also preserves the brand that Apache Junction is known for and the lifestyle, and it helps differentiate this area from the rest of the valley. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I want to make a comment. Several years ago, we used to have used to do a saying that if several people wanted to speak on the same issue, that they elect a spokesperson and spoke. So right there, that person spoke for 7 different people. So rather than hear from all 7 the same, so just make a note in that there was 7 people there that he was representing at least.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I have a comment to make. Mr. Bridges, I understand your concern, and it's a concern that all of the councils that I have been on have shared with you. The general plan designates everything north of Tepee in your area to be rural. And though the general plan is not cast in stone, it is certainly the intention of many councils to retain the rural nature in that area. This particular area that we're talking about on the general plan is designated for the type of density that is being asked for here, but not north of it. And homeowners are going to have to be cognizant of what's around them. If they buy and they're bothered by horses, they've got a problem, as far as I can see. You've got to, when you buy a home, you have to look around and determine, can I live with whatever, the kids across the street yelling and screaming when they get out of school, the horses, whatever is there. But I do understand your concern and share it.
Any more discussion?
I just want to say thank you for the concern and the aspects on it, because of the fact that we definitely want to keep the, I'll say, the image that we are known for throughout the valley on the horse and the livestock. And I appreciate your comments.
Anyone else? Okay, I will ask for a motion.
Your Honor,
Yes,
I
I'm-
didn't find it.
oh, I move that ordinance number 1486 be read by title only and the reading of the entire ordinance be waived.
Second?
roll call.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yeah, I know what she called it. So
We're voting on her not having to read the whole ordinance.
oh, yes.
thank you. Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble.
He scared you there, didn't he?
I was waiting.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Well, if I voted no, that means that you'd have to read it, so I'm going to vote yes.
Mayor Surtee.
Yes,
Unanimous, Your Honor. An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Apache Junction, Arizona, amending the Apache Junction, Arizona zoning ordinance by amending the zoning district map, City of Apache Junction, Arizona, changing the zoning district classification for the property described in rezoning case PZ-6-19, a request by Better Choice Homes, represented by Dennis Roberts of Atwell Group, from general rural low-density, single-family detached residential, known as RS-GR, to high-density multifamily residential by planned development, known as RM-1/PD, repealing any conflicting provisions and providing for severability.
do we have a motion on that?
Your Honor, I move that ordinance number 1486 as read by the city clerk be approved and adopted.
Second?
Roll call.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder,
No.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Before I vote, I'm going to make the statement that number one, and I want this down in the records is so that my vote is because I want to make sure that we do definitely follow the, I'll say, general plan, and that the magic line is Tepee, and that we will not be developing, I'll say, developments like this north of Tepee in that entire area. So will vote yes.
Mayor Surtee.
I'm going to go no also for low density.
All right, you are 4-2. Motion passes.
Consideration of proposed resolution 1935, case SD-119, for Better Choice Homes, Sydney again.
Mayor and council, this is the same item, so we have a resolution and ordinance. The resolution is for the rezone.
So we have to do this then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do we need the applicant to speak, or they already spoke? So,
We could have done it together.
yeah, so we could have done these together. But it is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this? This is officially rezoning what was just voted on.
Well, this is the subdivision plat.
Yeah, it's the plat.
The rezoning was the other item.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And is there any discussion among the council? I'll ask for a motion.
Your Honor,
Yes?
I move that resolution number 19-35, a rezoning request by Better Choice Homes for case number SD-1-19 of a vacant 2.5 acre property located near the southwest corner of Tepee Street and Idaho Road be approved.
Second?
Roll call?
Councilmember Evans?
Yes, and I'd like to say why I'm saying yes, because of our map and that this property is south of TP. Being a horse owner for over 25 years, I understand the need to keep our trails open, that we can get to there and ride where we want to ride and have for years. But we also have to be a city for everyone. And part of that everyone includes families for higher density. And I believe that this being a parcel directly across from the grade school, we need children in our schools, is a perfect location for it. That's it. Yes.
Vice
Wait.
Mayor Wilson?
The finish line.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
And repeat what I had said before, but yes.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Struble?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
No.
Mayor Sturdy?
Yes, on this one.
5-1, Your Honor, motion passes.
Consideration of resolution number 1936, declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk entitled 2019 Amendments to Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 4, Fees. Larry?
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, you could read the other one, number 8, and then you can do them together as one public hearing.
Okay, item number 8, consideration of proposed ordinance number 1482, amending Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 4, Fees, entitled, it's the same, Volume 1, Chapter 4, Fees. So both of these then, Larry.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Larry Kurtz, Director of Development Services. These two items are essentially the same. They relate to fees that we published on the city website about 75 days ago. So in order to change Chapter 4 in the state statutes require you to post the proposed fees on the city website for 60 days. So you gave us direction to staff to post those. We did. So we're bringing back the resolution and an ordinance. The fees relate to 4 areas. One is to create fees for the arts. And so there's a section in the ordinance that relate to collecting fees at the time of building permit for arts. We also made a proposal to change how we do legal fees, newspaper advertising fees, rather than create this escrow account and refund money that we looked at about 4 years worth of data on how we collect legal advertising fees, and we're proposing a flat fee structure, so that's in there. We had, again, the last 2 items are really kind of cleanup items on fees when we kind of went through the major overhaul last spring. So I have a slideshow if you want, or if you've read ahead, I can spare you that, and then I think you all have the red line copy that you all looked at. So I can answer any particular questions if you have any.
Do we have any questions, and do we want to see the slideshow?
I think for the benefit of the audience, we should.
Yes.
Slideshow, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'll pull it up, Larry.
Okay. So again, as I just said, we have fees in 4 different areas: public art, legal advertising fees, building permits, for a couple items that were overlooked when we first did the code, and then again some cleanup items. So again, we're asking you tonight to adopt those amended fees for these particular areas. So we looked at this 1% for the arts, as other cities do, like Oro Valley. So our fees are set up in 4 different areas for commercial development, multifamily development, but not single-family development. So we had that discussion when we created the Arts Board and the ordinance to in the zoning code as well. So again, it's based on the building permit valuation. We have a ceiling on these fees, as we talked about. So there is a maximum amount of fee that we can charge so that a larger project doesn't pay some exorbitant amount of money. So a project like the Fry's that might be $12 to $15 million, they still would have a cap. Public arts fees, again, we've included the city in this as well. So if there is a capital improvements project, so the city itself is not immune from paying these fees into the arts, so we can have arts at perhaps Flatiron Park or a new park someday. So those are a project that has a value of $50,000 or more. So the new off-leash dog park, for example, will have small, but I think we calculated it to be about $7,000 for public art as part of the project in the off-leash dog park. Again, we have in a lot of parts in the code if you are doing more than 50% renovation, so this is what the column on the left deals with. So if it is a project that's a major renovation of a building, they would also be subject to arts fee. The legal advertising fees, again, we had at least 3 departments keeping track of these fees, and I think I pointed out to you that before I got here, we lost track of about $7,000 in when someone comes and makes a deposit, they go through rezoning. So now, starting when this case before you tonight, about 2.5 months from now, we have to go back and refund the difference. And so we just felt, after looking at 4 or 5 years of data, it's just simpler to charge a flat fee for all the major types of activities that require a legal ad in the paper. So again, it costs us more, I think, to track and refund these monies than if we just know what the fees are and then avoid refunding them. And then these are the fees that we're proposing. The flat fees for conditional use permit is $250. The Board of Adjustments and Appeals are slightly different. We have the legal ad, which would be $100, but we also have added, most times if someone is just looking for a setback variance, it would be very simple. But if it is a case where the city has to hire an outside attorney because Mr. Stern can't represent the city and the Board of Adjustment, so we have proposed a fee to allow for a stenographer and not much, but a couple hours of an attorney. General plan amendment, again, $400. Again, this is all experience. We did 2 general plan amendments last year, and we ended up refunding money, so we have a flat fee for that. A rezoning, again, is a little more complicated. We sometimes have to publish a larger ordinance in the paper, and so that's why that fee is higher. Same thing for plan development. We end up publishing a longer ordinance in the paper. Zoning text amendment we viewed as the same as because we sometimes have to publish, depend on the size of the text, but we might have to publish a text, or we can do it. Zoning you can't do by resolution, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we do have to publish the full text, so that's why that fee. This is hard to read, I apologize, but these were some things that were not included. So again, we had some things that we wanted to add for park model sets that we wanted to make sure that the fee didn't say so, but it included an awning in the fee. Just a clarification. And then so much a square foot. Mobile home modeling and repair we were using the same rates as another interior model repair, so we wanted to clarify that. We had, if you will, looked at the commercial roof replacement, and 50% for the type of occupancy, the fee was like over the top, so we thought we needed to bring that fee way down. I think the next one, Dave can answer these 2, but I believe these relate to commercial HVAC, whether it was roof mounted or on the ground, I believe. Is that correct, Dave? So he could come up and answer that, but again, those are fees that we essentially omitted in the previous version. And then we had fees for certain types of looking at private laterals that we didn't cover, so we added those. And then we again clarified permits for interior remodeling for adding a tub, and versus whether the house was on a slab or not. Then the grading fees are the bottom one. So one was a typo, obviously you can see that, but we wanted to, for the fees, you can see in the item here, it says including plan review. That didn't say that here, so we're adding that. So we want to make sure that people knew that the fee included plan review, so again, I can go back and answer any questions if you had any for the...
Any questions or discussion? All right. This is a public hearing, and since we combined these, you'd be talking on both 7 and 8, if anyone would like to speak on these items. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any more discussion? Then I'll ask for a motion.
Yeah, I got
Or discussion?
Just so y'all know, we discussed this back in September. This was when we talked about the formation of the Art Council that is actually going to be meeting Thursday. And so, just to keep it real short, because in September I talked a long time and probably, I won't do that, I promise. But I'm all in favor of art. I think, art is a great part of our culture, a great part of the way people express themselves, and it's a great way for the citizens of our community to put forth ideas and all that kind of stuff. And I really don't have a problem with the Arts Council. Where I have an issue with this particular one is that we're going to be assessing a 1% fee on any building construction over those limits and such, and using it to fund public art, and then also to require private developers to put art that has to be approved by the Arts Council and the City Council, or Arts Commission and City Council. I just think it's a wrong way to fund it. There's various philanthropists, and there's grants out there that we could fund the arts projects for the cities and such. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that I'm not against art. It's just I don't approve of the funding sources that we are going to be using if this is approved to put art in the city.
Chip?
Thank you.
I got one question. What he was saying that we charge the fee, and whether the business decides to put the art in, wasn't that they could put the art in lieu of paying the fee?
If I can correct that, what it is we're going to be assessing a fee on any building in the community, whether it's commercial, nonprofit, churches, whatever it might be. There's limitations as far as dollar amounts, but we're going to assess the fee that they can either use. They don't have to pay the city, but they have to spend at least that amount, that 1%, on their art on their property, or they can pay the city to fund public art. Correct?
Also, Your Honor, yes, we had also, I think if you're talking about kind of a sliding scale we built in here, so smaller projects weren't going to generate a lot of money, so they could go into a fund, and after several projects, then we'd have enough money to do a project. So developers can choose to put it on their site. If they don't want to do art, they're not into art, they can contribute to a fee or to a fund that the city would have a segregated account in the fund, and the developer could choose to do the art or just put the money in the fund. And then for smaller projects, that's not going to generate a lot of funds, that would also go into the account so that we could do a larger project after funds were accumulated.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then I'll ask for a motion. This is on 7.
Your Honor, I move that resolution number 19-36, declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk entitled 2019 Amendments to Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 4, Fees, Article 4-4, Development Service Fees, 4-4-1, Building Permit Fees, 4-4-2, Grading Permit Fees, and 4-4-3, Planning, Subdivision, and Zoning Fees, repealing any conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date and a revolving 60-month review period be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Struble?
No.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor Surtee?
Yes.
5-1, Your Honor, motion passes.
And is there a motion on number 8?
Your Honor, I move that ordinance number 1482, amending Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 4, fees be read by title only, and the reading of the entire ordinance be waived.
Second.
Can we have a voice vote?
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Struble?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Mayor Surtee?
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor. Ordinance number 1482, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Apache Junction, Arizona, amending Apache Junction City Code Volume 1, Chapter 4, Fees, adopting by reference that certain document entitled 2019 Amendments to the Apache Junction City Code Volume 1, Chapter 4, Fees, Article 4-4, Development Service Fees, subsection 4-4-1, Building Permit Fees, Section 4-4-2, Grading Permit Fees, and Section 4-4-3, Planning, Subdivision, and Zoning Fees, repealing any conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date and a revolving 60-month review period.
Is there a motion on what she just read?
I move that ordinance number 1482, as read by the city clerk, be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Struble?
Just so anybody, if anybody was watching me here, I touched this thing and my computer started talking to me, so that's why I was giggling up here. No.
No. Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Mayor Surtee?
Yes.
5-1, Your Honor, motion passes.
Consideration of proposed ordinance number 1485, amending Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 7, Buildings. Larry again.
Good evening again, Mayor.
If I may,
Joel would like to speak.
if I may, Mayor, just to start. In the last week, I received a letter from an attorney who represents the Mobile Home Association, or manufactured housing industry. And today, I received yet another, this was an email from an attorney who represents a bunch of mobile home parks. And there's some objections to this ordinance, as well as a complimentary one from June of this year. So the request is to continue the matter. That's what they've asked me to advise the council. They'd like a continuance. And that would be to meet with the industry, their attorneys, and talk about some of the language. And then come back to council with what perhaps the industry could accept. I guess that's the way to put it.
But shouldn't we and could we discuss tonight and then decide whether to table? So
Yes,
since this is a public hearing, and I think some
is.
people came out to speak on this.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying you're
Yeah.
going to stop them from talking, but I wanted to advise the council that there's.
So at the end of the discussion, that
Yeah.
will be available to us.
Yes, and the dates would be either in February 18th, or March 3rd, because it would
Okay.
take a while to set up meetings with the industry.
Yeah, I'd recommend giving us time
Yeah.
if you continue it to a date.
March would be
Yeah.
better.
Give us
But you
time.
can tell us what their objections are.
There's some legal objections, and,
Legal as far as,
well,
I mean,
Can we discuss it first and then come back with questions?
absolutely.
Let's hear from Larry and see what it,
Okay. Is that is full screen, or does it get any bigger than that?
That we can zoom in.
Yeah, okay, just so the folks can see that, okay. So, I'm just gonna skip ahead to page 2, though, because what I'm pulling up is the red line version that's in the code, so you'll see. I'll kind of go through these, it's only a couple pages, but in this section of the code, you'll see that all of the zonings that allow manufactured homes, we inadvertently left off RSGR. So that is just a fix from the previous code. That's not, I think, being questioned by anybody. So we were adding RSGR, and you'll see it also in paragraph D below. Now, I think what Attorney Stern was getting to was, and you'll see a little more on the next page. So depending on where a manufactured home was going to be placed, if it's going to be on a lot that never had a home on it, it would have to be 2 years or newer. If it was going to go into a park, and depending on the age of the unit that you were replacing, it ended up being, if it was more than 7 years, and you'll see on the next page 10 years. So what I proposed was, and you'll see it on the next page, is that everything becomes 5 years. So rather than trying to figure out, well, is it 7 years because it's this kind of park, or 10 years old because of that kind of park, We just thought it would be easier to administer from a staffing and perhaps the public, that they would know if a unit's older than, you're removing a unit that's older than 5 years old, you have to bring in a new unit that's a newer unit into the city. So the goal of this was to get newer units into some of these aging parks. So again, paragraph, yes, ma'am.
So this has no impact whatsoever on units that are currently,
Correct.
okay.
Correct. It's only if you replace a unit. So again, say there was a unfortunate fire in a unit and the unit was from the 70s and you replaced it. If it's in a park, it would have to be newer than 5 years. Again, this in individual lots, again, we added that. So you'll see on the next page, it relates to that. So you can see where that paragraph was struck, where it talks about an existing mobile home more than 11 years is being removed or demolished in a lot in a park, and you can't bring in one that's older than 10 years. So again, I thought ease of administration, just make everything 5 years across the board, regardless of the type of park it's in and the age of the unit that went out. The other part of this was we had heard from industry, mainly a few of the parks, the RV parks that are platted subdivisions. So we have, I believe the number is 5, that are recreational vehicle parks that are actually platted as subdivisions. So the discussion was regarding when you add a Arizona room, how big can the Arizona room be? So the current draft that's on the books today is if you have a park model that's 400 square feet, your Arizona room could be 400 square feet. And historically, the city was getting, again, going a little bit further back, we were having park model additions that were 2,000 square feet. So you'd have a site built, if you will, park model addition that was more than 2 or 3 times the size of the park model. So we looked around at some other communities. We showed you that some cities do restrict them to 400 square feet. The Arizona rooms, others were, if it's part of a planned development, might be 750 feet. So we heard from a few of the parks, and we heard from some of the contractors that install these Arizona rooms that we were too restrictive. So you directed us to go back and look at that. And then this particular paragraph relates to the age of a replacement park model. So sorry I got ahead of myself here, but we also were looking at 5 years for again, if a park model's 20 plus years old and you're gonna replace it, we'd put in a new one. All right, so getting back to what we heard was there was a discussion that one of the parks limits the size of the park model addition to 48% of the lot. And where this really comes into play is on corner lots. We have a few corner lots that we looked at where the corner lots in an RV park are about as big as the lots that you approved tonight in a subdivision. We have some 3,000 square foot corner lots in some of these RV parks. So regardless, that's kind of where the larger Arizona rooms ended up going. So we were limiting it to 48% of the total lots, the square footage of the total lot. So when we were here a few months ago, we showed you some aerial photos where it just looked like almost one solid house or park model. You might have 6 lots, but they all have kind of grown together because people have maxed out these things. So we were proposing that you still have to meet the setbacks in these parks, and then also that you can't be all of these have to comply with setbacks, and they have to be no closer than 6 feet to another park model or another enclosed structure. So again, if there's an awning, you could be a little bit closer, but if there's a structure that's considered a structure, you have to, again, for fire separation purposes. So I think this was, whoops. I think, well, mouse is getting away from me here. I think that's the last one. Yes. So I think the other, at the bottom, we had, which I think is pretty reasonable, that you can't do an Arizona room onto a fifth wheel or a motorhome, a travel trailer, something that's meant to be moved. So you can't build a permanent structure on a site that's really intended for a vehicle that would come and go. Park models are technically able to come and go, but in reality, once they're there, they don't go. So getting back to the consideration of continuous to a day in the future, the other amendments that are not really perhaps in debate would also get referred. I'm not supposed to use the word referred.
No, you're not.
Can't use the word referred. So so if you're going to continue this, the other amendments that may be agreeable to folks would be kind of held up in this. So I think we would need some direction. Do you want us to bring back an ordinance that addresses the RSGR thing and kind of separate these? Or you want to hear them all at once? We could do the park models and the RSGR thing maybe sooner, and maybe the item related to how old of a manufactured home can come into the city. At least you're not holding up what the industry, the contractor said, hey, we'd like to try to get this question answered on the size of a park model addition. You follow? Yes?
You're looking at
Okay.
me funny.
Well, yeah,
So-
I just want to
so
make
the
sure, yeah,
40
if we're going
What
to.
you're suggesting, then, if I understand you correctly, is to continue with the age, because that appears to be the thing that's contested
Correct.
at this point, but to go ahead with the 48% of the lot and to add the RSGR to it, and the fact that no additions or permanent attachments can be made to a fifth wheel, et cetera.
Right.
So
And again, maybe you want to.
that's basically it.
Yeah, maybe you want to do, again, I don't know if we're ready to do that tonight and try to do it on the floor, or do you want us just to come back and do a separate ordinance just to take care of the cleanup?
We
And
want
then,
a separate ordinance.
and then about, in March or whatever it's going to be, we would deal with the age unit. So we could probably bring that early in January, and bring it back in two ordinances, if you will.
A comment here.
Thank you, Councilmember.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, I think you should put this whole thing on hold until we've met with the industry, and then come back in a month or two.
Or two.
All right.
Or two, because it's going to take a while to schedule, especially if the city manager is going to be involved. His schedule is impossible, but he will make time for this.
But we
Absolutely.
did have people take time out of their day to come here, so
Oh, have
I
them speak.
want to have the public hearing, and
Absolutely. I'm not saying don't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if you're going to do it, don't do it in bits and pieces. Please don't tell staff, oh, come back with this, but don't come back with that. We'll hold off on that. Let's just do it all at the same time. That's what I recommend.
all right. Well, this is a public hearing,
Okay.
so I would like to hear from, was there anyone that would like to speak? I have a couple requests here. Bradley Scott. We'll need your address.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here. My name is Bradley Scott. I'm from the law firm BFSO Law. Bergen, Frank, Smalley, and Oberholzer, located at 4343 East Camelback Road, Suite 210 in Phoenix. Tonight, I'm here on behalf of Charlie Keith. He's an RV park owner here in Apache Junction. He owns Sundance and Golden Acres RV Parks and is part of that management group. Charlie purchases RV parks in the area and is constantly attempting to improve them. One way he does this is by tracking down and purchasing quality used units to replace older rundown units. This improves the appearance and desirability of the park and attracts better quality tenants, who in turn are better members of the community. I think your staff can confirm that this is his model and that he has been a pleasure to work with from a code standpoint and as a community member. Moreover, his RV parks house quality citizens of Apache Junction. We got notice of this today with about 4 hours, and we might be ignorant of some of the ordinance and its ramifications. And part of the request is to continue it for, just to think about the consequences a little bit more. But the new restriction that was put into place this summer, limiting manufactured home replacement to 10 years, was difficult to work with, but nonetheless workable so far. The change to include park models in the new ordinance, which now includes a 5-year restriction on park models, which didn't have a replacement restriction before, will decimate his business and his residents and the larger Apache Junction community. Without some sort of grandfathering or like-kind or slightly new replacement provision, as you did in the manufactured home provisions last summer, this ordinance, if adopted, will prevent improvements, move-outs, will prevent improvements on move-outs, as the jump in replacement costs is cost prohibitive when you limit to 5-year units or lower. Accordingly, the ordinance seemingly prevents property improvements It incentivizes property owners and residents to utilize units to the very end of their useful lives without changing those out, attracting lower quality tenants, and leaves the property owners at a competitive disadvantage when compared to the park owners and surrounding communities. It seems that the proposed amendment is tied to safety concerns, but we have not seen the staff report explaining the issue, and so that's another reason I will be requesting a continuance to get a little more knowledge on that, just so we can better help the community and you come to a resolution here. Our client wasn't engaged as a stakeholder in the industry on this and only found out, again, 4 hours ago, so we came out here and, again, maybe a little ignorant on the topic. We request that you first continue the hearing and your decision on this matter in order to engage the stakeholders. We think March 3rd is probably an appropriate time frame. Also schedule meetings with the stakeholders in the meantime. Sorry, city manager. And just give them the chance to find a resolution, find a middle ground that satisfies the city's objectives with the unintended bad behavior like riding units to their very last breath. The proposed ordinance seems like a step backward and will significantly slow, if not halt, the hard work and dedication this council and our client Charlie have taken to improve the community. So we hope you'll continue the hearing, engage with the community and industry holders. We look forward to working with you if that's what you decide to do. Thank you very much. And I would say I'll answer some questions, but again, as I've expressed a little ignorance, and we're trying to look for a little bit more information.
The format of this meeting doesn't allow for questions and answers with people that comment.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Okay. Melissa Parham.
Your Honor and City Council, I'm an attorney with the law firm of Williams, Inman, and Parham, and I'm here on behalf of Manufactured Housing Communities of Arizona, which is the largest owners association of mobile home park owners and operators in the state. I'm also speaking on behalf of several mobile home parks who have come to this meeting today and have also asked me to speak on their behalf, some of whom are MHCA members and some of whom are not. With regard to the ordinance that Apache Junction is considering today, there is some background here, and as you know, in June 2019, the city passed an ordinance that greatly restricted a mobile home park's ability to replace a home in a mobile home park. And that ordinance, as the previous attorney who spoke mentioned, restricted replacement for a vacant space where a home has to be replaced in a mobile home park to a home no older than 7 years. For a space that's already occupied by a home older than 11 years, it restricted it to a replacement of 10 years. MHCA would say that that's really an arbitrary restriction and that that's going to greatly harm the manufactured housing industry, and especially it's going to greatly harm tenants. There's a big focus right now nationwide and in Arizona as well on affordable housing and the affordable housing crisis that's going on in the country. There's actually an AP article today about the rising rents in the Phoenix metro area. And this ordinance seems to target the lowest income residents in Apache Junction. Some of the lowest income residents in Apache Junction live in manufactured housing. And when you require a park, as the one that's the ordinance that's proposed today, which would restrict us to 5-year replacement, so not 7 years, not 11 years, but 5 years across the board, a mobile home that's being put in a park cannot be older than 5 years. That's going to increase the cost of operating a mobile home park. As the previous attorney mentioned, when you have to replace an older home with a newer home, if you can't repair that older home, which essentially the June 2019 ordinance prohibits, for example, if the air conditioning goes out in a pre-HUD home, the way that ordinance is written, that home pretty much has to be abandoned. You can't repair the air conditioning unless it's been rehabilitated through the state, which the ordinance actually prohibits. So say you have a tenant in a pre-HUD home, their AC or their water heater goes out, they pretty much have to say, all right, well, I'm not allowed to replace any of these things in the city of Apache Junction, so I have to give up this home. The home becomes abandoned. The park then has to follow a process to get title to that home. Once the park gets title to it, they have to dispose of it, and then they're stuck replacing it with a home that's not older than 5 years. That's going to be very expensive. That's practically a new home. That means rents across the board in a mobile home park are going to vastly increase, which means ultimately the affordable housing that's currently available in the city is going to slowly disappear. And the cost of operating these parks is going to go up, which is going to devalue mobile home parks in Apache Junction as compared to parks in other cities that don't have such restrictive ordinances. So MHCA actually did have us write a letter to the city of Apache Junction, which I don't know if any of you have seen as of yet. But we did contend, and we still contend, that the June 2019 ordinance violates a number of laws. We believe it violates the Private Property Rights Protection Act, which is an act that provides if a municipality adopts an ordinance that reduces the fair market value of a private property, that private property is entitled to just compensation. We think that this will definitely devalue mobile home parks in Apache Junction as compared to in other cities. It's going to be a lot more expensive to operate a mobile home park in Apache Junction if you have to buy a new home every time you have an older pre-HUD home abandoned in your park. Again, tenants, generally low-income tenants, particularly in all ages communities, probably can't afford to buy a home that's been manufactured within the last 5 years. So you're looking at eliminating an entire class of tenants in those family communities. If they want to upgrade their homes, they can't. They're stuck with these old homes. We also believe that it violates the Stagecoach Trails versus City of Benson case. The ordinance has no provision for nonconforming uses for recognizing a nonconforming use park. So a park that was built in the 50s that should have to operate under zoning ordinances and ordinances that existed in the 50s would be stuck with this new ordinance, with this 5-year replacement rule, which we believe can't be enforced based on Stagecoach Trails. A very big concern here, though, is really the affordable housing crisis and the fact that this will eliminate potentially a lot of affordable housing in Apache Junction. I would be happy to answer any questions, but I don't believe that I'm allowed to do that. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak.
And Jennifer, note that 11 people
11,
stood.
thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any more discussion? Is the consensus that it should be put off until at least March?
March 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that ordinance number 1485 be continued to March 3rd, 2020.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
Consideration of whether to terminate the 1992 agreements between the city and self-policing parks. Larry or Rudy?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rudy Esquivius, the planning manager. I don't have a presentation this evening, Mr. Mayor. We've come to you to discuss this item a couple of times. There's a handful of parks that still technically have these self-operating or self-policing agreements. They have failed miserably. All of the owners have changed from when those self-policing agreements were first enacted. So we're just asking you, and it wasn't any kind of a formal action apparently that approved the agreements. So we don't believe that there's a formal action other than you voting to rescind the agreements that needs to be done. And beyond that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions for Rudy?
Yeah, what were they policing?
The self-policing agreements allowed for example, park model installations to be done without permits. But basically, other items such as Arizona rooms and things like that still required permits, but there was always confusion about what exactly they meant. Original owners changed, managers changed. Nobody was quite sure how the things operate. Most of the parks that signed the agreements originally right away discovered that they were going to be problematic and themselves rescinded the agreements. I think there was originally 11 self-policing agreements written, and now there's maybe 4 or 5 that still operate in some form. But as we showed you in our presentation, the encroachments, the building without permits, the structures inches apart, structures built all the way to property lines, it just hasn't worked. They're not being well managed. They're not well understood. We think it's a health and safety hazard. And part of the discussion was, we've got 125 mobile home and RV parks in the city. Why are a handful operating under different rules? Let's have everybody operate under the same rules.
So when did we discussed this in October
We
previously?
discussed it in October and,
November.
and September, I think.
Yeah, just letting the people know out there that this has been discussed in the past. And
Yes.
they could go out onto the website and watch the videos if they wanted to.
Right.
Any further discussion? And I'll call for a motion.
Your Honor, I move that the 1992 agreements between the city and the self-policing parks, which include Sunrise RV Park, Countryside RV Park, Golden Sun RV Park, Lost Dutchman RV Park, and Rock Shadows RV Park, pursuant to paragraph 11 of the said agreements be terminated.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Struble?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Surtee?
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
Consideration of proposed resolution number 19-32, authorizing the City of Apache Junction's PD to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with DPS and Gang Immigration Intelligence Team Enforcement Mission, State Gang Force. Chief Kelly, and I know you've had a guest sitting patiently by.
Thank you, Your Honor, City Council. Tonight, actually, is I got a real short presentation on this, and then if you have additional questions, Major Beck from DPS may be able to give you some more information. Last couple of years, I've been approached, or the department's been approached to get engaged with the DPS Gang Task Force for a variety of different reasons. This presented a new adventure for us in the city when they came recently to us and afforded us the opportunity to give them a member to join the current task force here in the East Valley. Under the proposal resolution that you'll see before you, the DPS picks up 75% of the officer's salary, all benefits, and takes care of all equipment and training. It affords us additional resources to deal with some of the issues that the council has directed to us in the past when we had the Community Resource Enforcement Unit working, and through your support, we were able to do a lot of the street crime issues and deal with drug enforcement and other things that we routinely deal with in the evening hours. With us being able to get allowed to join this task force, it also brings additional resources to us, which we've utilized in the past without any commitment of our personnel. But the extra benefit is that the city gets to have an officer assigned to it, receive the additional training, and expand the resources that come back into the city for the basic contribution of about 25% of the officer's salary. And so with that being said, I would request that you consider it and give us the approval to move forward on this task force gathering. If I could, if you wish to hear additional information from Major Beck, he's with the DPS and he controls a statewide task force. Major. Assuming you have any questions.
Yeah, I don't have, I do not have a presentation this evening. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
So this is a statewide task force,
Yes, ma'am.
and are you, are you soliciting officers from multiple jurisdictions to join in this task force?
Yes, there's officers from around the state that participate in the task force already,
Okay, thank you.
including from within Pinal County,
Right.
too.
So, do you feel it's on the upturn, downturn, same as always?
Gangs have changed over the years. You know, back in the 80s, 90s, they would wear the same color clothes. You'd see gang members standing on street corners and so forth. That's all changed to the internet, Instagram, and all the social media platforms and the phones. So, to the average citizen, they may not see the gang members out there as they drive around communities and so forth. But at the same time, in addition to operating more so on the social media platforms, the gang members that are out there are more controlled today by prison gangs and so forth, and they're more interrelated than they have ever been. So,
People that were in gangs in the 80s would now be in their 50s. are they still in gangs, or do they drift out and get
No,
normal lives?
A lot of them do drift away from that lifestyle, yes, sir.
So, curiosity, if a lot of this is now on social media, how is part of this task force purpose to watch that social media and gather information from it?
Yes, ma'am. We have intelligence analysts and so forth that do that type of research, and so that we are more directed in our activities toward the gang members that need to be addressed.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I have a question for our esteemed chief.
Councilman
Curiosity, we will then be short an officer?
No, actually, we're going to have, we've already backfilled a position for that officer who will be assigned to the task force. And what it does, it brings actually, like I said, the additional task force members come in and work in our community. And this team here is the East Valley team, so unlike ones that were participating in the past where the direction was more down to Eloy and Casa Grande in that area, this is the East Valley, so it'll encompass Apache Junction, Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler area. So it's the East Valley
So
one.
we actually gain rather than lose?
We gain a lot, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If no more discussion, we'll ask for a motion.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that resolution number 19-32, authorizing the City of Apache Junction's Police Department, AJPD, to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Department of Public Safety, DPS, for one as P.O.S.T. certified sworn AJPD personnel to assist DPS with gang and immigration intelligence team enforcement mission state gang task force be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
Presentation, discussion, and consideration of proposed resolution number 19-33, authorizing City of AJPD to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Town of Gilbert for the donation of taser equipment in exchange for the use of the city's firearms range.
This looks like a good deal.
Good evening again. Tom Kelly, Police Chief, Mayor, Council. This was one of these issues where we came across where Gilbert Police Department is upgrading their entire system and getting a more upgraded taser. We currently still use that equipment, and it's still working fine for us. With them disposing this equipment, they've afforded us the opportunity to use these with our armorer to refit our equipment that may need additional part or two, or equipment that they have not utilized. And we barely or merely have to allow them to use our range on an occasional basis. So it's an intergovernmental agreement, doesn't no cost event for the police department in the city.
Do we have to furnish a range officer when they're here, or can they do it themselves?
Usually what we do is both. They schedule with our range master, and then through the coordination with our range master, they'll have a range master be on scene and follow our protocol. And they clear it when they come in, and they go out and they let us know what they're going. And occasionally they may ask to have our range master down there, but generally they have their own person on staff. So it's really of no additional cost to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there a schedule? I mean,
They schedule it ahead of time. They will notify our range master their wishes of when they would like to use the range. And if it fits in our schedule, then we make it affordable to them. If it's against our schedule, then they have to reschedule with us.
Chief, since most people don't even know we have a range, and it's on the edge of town, if state land below there sells and develops, will that put our range at risk, or can it still continue to operate?
That would depend on what the planning of the future of the city is. Right now, we don't know what is going to happen in that part of the area for sure. Gilbert and Chandler currently have redone their training area. They have ranges, and they usually use the outdoor ranges for the long guns because of the distance that they used for the firearms training, and we currently support between DPS, a variety of agencies, including Border Patrol, and everything to use our range right now. So we have multiple agencies that do schedule with us already. So it's kind of like the East Valley. We used to go, years ago, we used to go up to Superior and use the range up there, but then through the cooperation of Public Works and a lot of the street removal things, we built the berm up enough that it's a safe enough area that we can utilize that, and other areas, other SWAT teams come in and routinely use that area for their training.
Thank you.
So to answer your, I'm sorry, Mayor, to answer your question, I don't know what'll happen if
Yeah,
when it
something to
happens.
be
It's something that we're aware of, yeah.
You know how
We
it-
did have a situation a few years back when DPS wanted to come in and make a little bit more of a permanent facility out there, and we did keep it so that there would be flexibility. So they did do some improvements, but
Yeah.
it was much smaller in size, so that we don't know when the state land
The
might.
people that build subdivisions next to horses and complain will also complain, what's that popping sound I hear all the time?
Right.
Sounds like a war going on down there.
Yeah, telling them it's quail season doesn't work very
Yeah.
often.
Yeah. Right.
But they, along with the city manager did say, we have had numerous upgrades to that. AZ Post, our police officer training center, has given us funds to do different upgrades to the area, and a lot of the agencies have contributed funds to maintain that berm area and the range.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion on this?
Your Honor, I move that resolution number 19-33, authorizing the City of Apache Junction's Police Department to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Town of Gilbert for the donation of taser equipment in exchange for use of the city's firearm range be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Struble?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor Surtee?
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
Presentation, discussion, and consideration of proposed regulation number 19-34, authorizing the City of Apache Junction's Police Department to enter into an IGA with Arizona Department of Transportation for connectivity.
Once again, you get to see Tom Kelly, Police Chief, Mayor, City Council. This one should be even shorter than the other two. Back in June of 2018, the City Council went into an intergovernmental agreement with ADOT to allow us to begin access and receive information through their technology section in regards to traffic accident and traffic ticket enforcement. This new IGA will allow us to actually input and actually begin the implementation of putting the information in on the system, which will make it a lot faster. Back in 2018, your officers wrote 3,700 citations by hand. This one will automatically go in automatically into the computer system, which makes it a lot timely. It allows the court to get the information more legible, so you don't have to worry about your right handwriting or my handwriting being read by the city clerk or the clerk of the court to read those. So it makes everything a lot more expedient. This is another thing that we entered into an agreement with ADOT to share our traffic accident information and statistical information, and it's again a no cost to the city.
Any discussion? Then I'll ask for a motion.
Your Honor, I move that resolution number 19-34, authorizing the City of Apache Junction's Police Department to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Arizona Department of Transportation for connectivity of electronic crash records database as tracks be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Struble?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Mayor Surtee?
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion on upcoming council dates?
Your Honor.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that an executive session at 6 p.m. and a work session at 7 p.m. for Monday, January 6, 2020, and an executive session at 6 p.m. and a work session at 7 p.m. for Tuesday, January 7, 2020, be held in the City Council Conference Room in the City Council Chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard, Apache Junction, Arizona, respectively, and other meetings if necessary.
Second.
Roll call.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes, we don't want to meet on January 1st.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
These guys never let me second it, so, yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee.
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
This is a time for the public to express requests, communications, comments, and suggestions. Each speaker must have already filled out a request to speak form and handed it to the city clerk before the end of the city manager's report. All issues shall be presented in a professional manner without personal attacks. Under the open meeting law, the council cannot engage in discussion on the issues presented, but may respond to criticism and may direct staff to follow up with the speaker directly and/or place this matter on a future agenda for council discussion. There's a 3-minute limit for each speaker. I have 2. The first one is Terry Reynolds.
Mayor Surtee, you seem to relish in the success of this city and its staff, and as the mayor, you should. But you must also accept responsibility for the errors or failures of that same staff when things go wrong or fall through the cracks. During the September 3rd, 2019 council meeting, a contract was awarded to Regional Pavements for the slurry seal of Apache Villa and Ironwood Cove subdivisions. A flyer went out notifying the affected residents and indicated that between November 11th and November 26th, which streets would be affected and the time frames. My street, Lothar Drive, was scheduled to be accomplished on the 11th and 12th. The east side of 11th of Lothar was done on the 11th, and the west side of Lothar done on the 12th, except for the east side of Lothar between 10th Street on the north and 13th Street on the south was never done. Last week, all of the barrier cones and signs were removed from the project, and it appears there is no plan to lay any more slurry on the remaining areas of Lothar and 2 to 4 other areas within the contract area. There also seems to have been adequate time and weather to permit completion of this project, and yet nothing has been done. My opinion is that you and your staff, whoever they may be, need to take a more proactive approach to monitoring contracts that are awarded. In addition, communication with affected residents, should issues arise, is critical. Inspections and verification prior to any payments for the work performed is imperative to ensure that the contract was completed in its entirety and per contract terms. Anything less is a failure by this administration to perform at its best for the citizens of Apache Junction. Respectfully submitted.
George Schroeder.
Evening. Happy holidays and whatever you celebrate. George Schroeder, 244 West Virginia, Apache Junction. Got a little bit of a Christmas present for you after I say what I want to say. You seem to be keeping to your word. You don't want progress in Apache Junction. Great, because you haven't done nothing for my streets in 36 years. They're disappearing. The pavement is gone. You've done nothing. You are the problem. We need to change that. We still have drug addicts, drug dealers, gangs in the city, noticed by our presence and need for outside help. Health and safety issue regarding 2525 West Virginia. The mother has died, the daughter has passed. The property has gone into foreclosure from the state and the taxes. I got all the information. This should be recommendation to condemn the property and the building. If you go by there and do your own investigation, I've told you this for years, please go see for yourself. You're not doing it, you're just taking somebody's words for this and that and the other. Condemn it. It needs to be condemned. It's a problem, and it'll be a problem until they auction it in March. It's not like I don't have the facts. I call the tax people all the time to see who's doing what and when and where and how and why. But our developmental services doesn't seem to want to do their job. They've been out to that house probably 100 times in the last 5 years. They saw that the person had no electric, no water. It's against Arizona and state and other municipal laws not to have those. This guy is now in a mental facility. Whew. Condemn the property, 2525 West Virginia. I'm going to take a little sabbatical from disturbing your evenings. And when I come back, I hope I'm going to have these indictments ready for the city to terminate the employment of the people of these indictments. And number one on the list is Judge Hazel. He's a criminal. Criminal. Have a good night. Merry Christmas.
Would anyone have any responses? Bryant, regarding when we do a contract, how do we know that we get what we paid for? And how and when are they paid? If you could give us a report on that, and possibly if you have the address of Terry.
We certainly will provide a report and speak to Mike Weaver to find out where the inspections are. We do inspections, and on this project, I know we had some weather. I know, Joel, we can't get into it too much, right? Okay.
Right, so I've just asked
Yeah.
for a report on that. I don't
Yes.
think we prepay them, so.
Right.
Yeah, so I think we do have some, so.
We do.
And Brian, is there any way we can get someone out there on Mr. Schroeder Street to find out if it really is that bad and that disrepair, and
Yes, sir.
find out what we can do?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, with that, we'll be adjourned.